Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Islamic Research and Training Institute is pleased today to have Dr. Khalifa Muhammad Ali to present his research paper. The title of the presentation is Waqf Resource Mobilization for Poverty Alleviation. First, let me introduce Dr. Khalifa briefly. Dr. Khalifa is a senior economist at the Research Division of the Islamic Research and Training Institute. His work experience includes the following responsibility. The Banking Control Department in the Central Bank of Sudan, Instructor of Economics at Iowa State University, USA, Associate Professor of Economics at the United Arab Emirates University. Dr. Khalifa is the editor of the Islamic Economics Study Journal of RT. His research and books are published by some of the well-known publishers. Dr. Khalifa developed the content of the online master degree in Islamic banking, finance and banking for RT, also the content of RT IDB online program and the Islamic banking and finance with edX, MIT and Harvard University. Dr. Khalifa will present for about 40 minutes.
No, 30 minutes.
30 minutes. After the presentation, we will have a session of question and answer. Now, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Khalifa to deliver his presentation.
Thank you, Brother Abdullah. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So, this paper today is about Waqf resource mobilization for poverty alleviation, Maqasid framework. The outline of this presentation is that we will start by introduction, and then we look at the recent experiences of MDBs, multilateral development banks, in replenishment or resource mobilization, and what lessons that we can learn in order to develop a global Waqf fund from an Islamic perspective. And then we merge, the methodology which is used by the International Development Association we introduce some Islamic concepts to this formula, and we rank our member countries or Islamic countries based on this merge or augmented formula, using the same methodology which is adapted by IDA, which is International Development Association, which is a very transparent and solid formula. Okay, in order at the end, to use the same methodology, which is very reliable and transparent for our major, donors, so that we want to bring this transparency and accountability and good governance to our fundraising effort, in order to, to attract more resources for any proposed global Waqf fund. So we start by what we know, that's the definition of Waqf. Waqf refers to making a property invulnerable to any disposition that leads to transfer of ownership and donating the user fact of that property to beneficiaries. This is according to IOFI. So, and as you know, Waqf is irrevocable and perpetual and undisputable. It also requires good regulatory framework. But we probably need to develop, the regulatory framework that we are working on currently, some of our colleagues here, in order to also encompass some aspect of this, global Waqf fund. Because basically we are working on country, within countries, for regulations and the regulatory framework within countries, but not across countries. The role and importance of Waqf is that historically it has been used to enhance social welfare, enhance income distribution in society, and in alleviation of poverty. The motivation actually, or at least one of the motivation for me to start writing on this, about this global Waqf fund actually started even before 2010, before that. It took longer. I've been thinking about this for, but in 2010, actually, IDB president made a call, I recall, in Malaysia for establishing a global Waqf fund to be hosted in Malaysia itself. So that was one of the motivation for me to start thinking about this. And we currently have an example of a global Waqf fund, which is Islamic Solidarity Fund for Development. That was established in 1426 with a target capital of 10 billion. But until now, I think only about 27% of the target is being realized. So there is a huge disparity between our aspiration as far as creating a global Waqf fund for poverty alleviation and the actual resources that we have managed to allocate or to attract for that fund. So the idea of having a fund for poverty alleviation is very common among other, multi-MDBs. Okay, and they seem to be very successful, or at least doing better than us in their effort for mobilizing resources. So what lessons that we can learn from those MDBs? One of the main things is that, for example, that they keep the challenge of communication and interaction with the multilateral network of donors in order to understand their motives. The main motivation for donation for poverty alleviation is, or at least many of the studies identified poverty as the main driver behind the contribution of donors. This can be found in $11 study. So in this slide, I just wanted to say that similar funds have been established in at least 3 of the major MDBs: the World Bank, you have the International Development Association, and the Asian Development Bank, you have the Asian Development Fund, and the African Development Bank, you also have the African Development Fund. And here I just want to say that those funds have been very successful compared to our own effort in mobilizing resources. If we just look at the International Development Association, their latest replenishment resulted in 53 billion SDR, which is equivalent to 75 billion to finance project over the 3 years from 2017 until 2020. And the other 2 funds also have been doing at least better than what we have been doing. So we want to establish a global fund, okay, but there seems to be challenge in the management, in transparency management at least, and we need to administer this fund in a way that will attract more resources. If we look at many of our member countries, especially the capable ones, you will find them actually contribute. They have very high, official development assistance compared to their income. Okay, so you have countries like Turkey, like Saudi Arabia, like Kuwait, like UAE. Their contribution or their official development assistance compared to the GDP is very high. Actually, it's among the top and continue to increase over time. They also contribute to the International Development Association, IDA, and the Asian Development Fund and the African Development Fund. Our own member countries. Okay, so why we don't see a similar contribution to our own fund? Is it over commitment, or is it the way we manage our fund? And what lessons can we learn from their experience. Even if you look at this Global Humanitarian Assistance Report of 2018, you'll find actually Turkey, which is a member country, actually is the top of the list with humanitarian assistance of over $10 billion. So why they are not contributing? Maybe that's due to the way we manage our fund. If we look at the other MDBs, they seem all to rely on the methodology which is developed by the World Bank and the International Development Association. And generally, this focus on evidence of achieving successful results and in addressing the needs of the poorest and in limiting credit-worthy countries. I mean, limiting resources to the credit-worthy. So they continue to give resources as long as they perceive that these resources are being used effectively and benefit the poor. Okay. So currently, there are 75 countries that are eligible for borrowing funds from the International Development Association. Out of this, we have 29 IDB member countries that are eligible for donorship under the IDA scheme, and of course they focus on poverty, and they defined poverty in a very settled way related to gross national income, per capita income, and they have a very transparent methodology that they calculate and update annually, and it is made available to everybody. Okay, so what is exactly they are doing actually in terms of attracting resources? What they follow is a procedure which rely on performance and need at the same time. So there are two components for the formula that they use: needs here, and then performance, and that results into the PBA, which is performance-based allocation. And out of this, they get observable indicators that they publish, and they rank countries on the basis of this. And resources, is allocated based on the rank that countries achieved in this BBB. The needs part of the components actually rely mainly on income and population. On population largely. The performance part of this formula rely on what is called country policy and institutional assessment, CPIA. Okay? The CPIA actually encompasses 4 clusters, main clusters. The main cluster is economic management, which includes macroeconomic management, fiscal policy, debt policy, and then the structural policy, which include trade, financial sector, business regulatory environment, and then policies for social inclusion, which include gender equality, equity of public resources use, and then building human resources, social protection, and labor, and then policies and institutions for environmental success. And finally, the public sector management and institution, which include property rights, rule-based governance, quality of budget and financial management, efficiency of revenue and mobilization, quality of public administration, and finally, transparency, accountability, and corruption in the public sector. So we would like to use the same transparent and solid framework, but add to it Islamic dimension in order for us to be able to use it for a global fund. And so basically, we would like to introduce a component in that BBA that reflect maqasid al-sharia, And fortunately, we have recently researchers focusing on maqasid al-sharia as a measurable concept, and try to come up with maqasid al-sharia composite index that actually quantify maqasid al-sharia for the sake of policy and development purposes. So many of these studies actually identified indicators which are relevant to maqasid, and develop multi-dimensional index for measuring achievements in terms of adherence to maqasid sharia. Other studies actually use the United Nations Human Development Indicator after regrouping them in certain matters, again to reflect maqasid al-sharia. So this is basically the basis for the index that we would like to create and then add to the country performance indicator, which is created by the International Development Association. So we simply average, a number of studies that were devoted to creating maqasid sharia composite indices, and then try to add it to the existing framework, which is used by IDA. We have done that, and this is the result here. For example, out of these about 9 studies, this is the ranking that actually emerged out of the ranking of our member countries, okay, based on indices for maqasid al-sharia. So you have, for example, Qatar, Kuwait, Jordan, Tunisia, Turkey on the top. And before that, I think generally we have countries like Somalia, Sudan, Iraq, and Comoros that are in the bottom. Whether we use whether we freely bring indicators to measure maqasid al-sharia, or whether we use human development indicators to reflect maqasid al-sharia. This is the other table that we created from the studies that use the Human Development Index to create maqasid al-sharia. And this is the ranking. Again, you have Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia on the top of the list. Of course, you would expect, the two measures, since both of them try to measure maqasid al-sharia, to move close to each other, and that's what seems to be the case here. If you plot them and try to find the correlation between the two, you'll find the correlation actually to be close to 90. So both of them seems to move together. So we want to use the same transparent method which is used by other MDBs, relying on the International Development Association as the basis for our global fund. But at the same time, we would like to factor in it maqasid al-sharia. Okay, and that is based on this summary of the studies that are available to us until today. This is basically the formulas that are currently used by the 3 major funds that I just shown to you at the beginning. And they basically rely on this CBIA. Okay, but the way, so you have the performance and you have the needs. The need largely depend on the population, but the performance depend on those macro and institutional indicators that I went over before. But the way they combine those things, those indicators together, actually is different. They don't combine. If you look at the formula, there are differences in the way they combine it. And the difference in the way they combine it reflects their priorities and their own assessment for performance, for example, and their own assessment for needs. Okay, so while they use the same indicators, they tend to combine them differently. So once you understand how they are combined and how the structure of combining those different variables together will affect the outcome, then you can affect the outcome depending on your policy objectives. Okay. So what I have done simply here is that I brought the simple or the standard International Development Association formula for measuring country performance rating, and simply added to it the maqasid sharia composite index. Okay, so I introduced weights in the formula in the last line here. Okay, you cannot see this. Okay, anyway, So basically, I added alpha and beta, and the summation of alpha plus beta equal to 1. So it's a weights. I added to the CBR, country performance rating. The needs parts remain the same. Here, this is just comments, and basically it says that countries, if you look closely at those formula, for example, let's say needs depends on the population. For example, in Asian countries, if you rely on population to determine needs, some of the very popular, highly populated countries actually will show very high, needs. So knowing that, and to cater for, less populated countries, the Asian Development Bank actually reduced the factor of population in determining needs. So once you understand the formula and how the factors are combined, then you can change the way you combine them to reflect your policy objectives. Okay. So I simply just added the weights, for example. I made a simulation for three different schemes, 3 weights in both the index, which rely on general indicators or human development indicators, and the weights, varies between 25, 75, 50, 50, and then 75, 25. And I looked at this different weighting scheme on and how it will alter, the results of the country performance rating of our member countries. Okay, so this is the results for using human development indicator. Okay, and this is a graph here. The blue, of course, the blue one reflects the initial one without any weights, and then as you go, we introduce the weights, 25, 50, 50, and then 75, 25. And this is how things change over time. This is the same kind of simulation, but now I'm using the Maqasid Sharia Composite Index, not the human development, not the one that rely on human development indicator. And this is a graph of the simulation, the 3 simulation that I have made. So this is basically the main exercise that I've made, and what are the lessons that we can use, that we can get after we combine this. First of all, as we expect, this is just a comment relating to the way Maqasid Sharia Index is calculated. The two in the C's, one which is freely, being created, and one which is created based on human development. Because both of them seem to give the same results, okay, or at least results in the same direction. And that the second observation is that countries that perform very low based on country performance rating tend to do better with higher share of Maqasid Sharia Composite Index, and the opposite was true for the very high performing countries, with 2 exceptions, Sudan and Guinea-Bissau. Okay. And that the third is that in the Maqasid Sharia Composite Index in the C's seem to alter the CBR result, and hence, so if you include Maqasid Sharia or weights for Maqasid Sharia Index in the CBR index, you alter the results in a way that will reflect your policy preferences. Okay. طبعا Maqasid Sharia Index reflects your aspiration towards, policies that favor Maqasid Sharia. And then the last point in this slide is that the transparent methodology and formulas implemented by the various MDBs, and I mean the BBI and CBIA, set good example for global Waqf fund to emulate. So we can certainly take the BBA and the PI, okay, and use them, but augment them with Maqasid Index. They are transparent. They are created in a very solid, manner. they bring like more confidence and transparency for the process, for our process of resource mobilization. At the same time, we will be able to introduce Islamic element to it, and we'll have great flexibility in the way we create. This is we have a great flexibility in the way we combine the various factors, okay, elements of the index itself. As we have seen, the three MDBs themselves, you know, they have different ways in which they combine the different elements of the CBR. So at the same time, depending on our policy objectives, we can, you know, combine them differently, and moreover, we can easily add an index relying on maqasid al-sharia, and I mean, depending on how we, even the way we define maqasid al-sharia itself, we will have flexibility to do adjustment to it. Okay. Finally, I mean, funding of projects may actually depend on the rights, relying on the voting rights, relying on capital contribution. So the main point is that if you combine, first of all, you have this solid methodology, which is very flexible. Once you understand how the different components of the formula are will affect the outcome, then you can affect the outcome by changing the formula to reflect your policy. Moreover, by creating a maqasid-based index, depending on how, even that, you will have the flexibility on creating the maqasid index in the way that reflect your policy aspiration. So this is a very transparent, well-tested, and can easily accommodate, you know, maqasid element. And since our member countries seem to interact more and donate actually to these funds more than to our own fund, hopefully, if we adapt this kind of formula in a global Waqf fund, we should be able to attract like more resources to our to any new proposed fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Khalifa, for your informative presentation. Now, inshallah, we will open the floor for any questions or comments.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for the presentation. I apologize in advance because I missed the first 15 minutes, so I hope I don't touch on anything you covered. There are just a few points that aren't very clear in my own mind, so I just wanted to ask for clarification on them. The first one was the use of the acronym MSCI. I understand it stands for Maqasid al-Sharia Compliance Index.
Composite.
Composite index. Okay. I just wanted to know, is that related to the index you have in the, for example, in the private sector, that investment index, GICS MSCI, is it related to that? And if it's not related to that, then maybe we can consider giving it another acronym just to avoid confusion. The second question I was going to ask is regarding the rankings. I saw that on each of the different slides you're putting up, there were different rankings depending on a few variables. But my understanding was that the Maqasid Sharia Index is a singular index. So why were there different countries appearing at the top of one and on the top of the other one? That wasn't very clear to me. I'll leave it at those two for now.
Yeah, the first point regarding the Maqasid Sharia Composite Index. No, this is just an index. There is a huge, you know, literature and studies that's currently going on that try to quantify, you know, Maqasid Sharia as a measurable concept, and these different studies, you know, come up with different indices for measuring Maqasid Sharia. So what I have done is that I pulled all these studies together and I just came up with an average for them. Yeah, we can change. We can. I don't know. You can ask Salman. He's doing this. Maqasid al-Sharia index. I think. Yeah, I don't have the authority to change it. I mean, I'm just following it. Regarding ranking, I mean, ranking, which ranking? I mean, are you referring to? Of course, I mean, if you refer to the last simulation, these are simulations with different values. So, so the weight should change. You expect variation. If you are talking about the ranking before that, these are measured. The indices are measured differently, so you expect some variations, but overall there is some stability. But they should not be the same because they are different. They're measuring maqasid sharia in different ways. That's why I just pulled them all and came up with an average. So this is an area actually, also is an area to me of flexibility. I mean, the way, I mean, people have not converged to like settled way in which maqasid al-sharia can be measured. Okay, so depending on how, if we are creating a global Waqf fund, if people in charge, the management, if they agree on the way, they have to understand how. First of all, we have to explain to them how combining the different variables will affect the outcome, and then make them choose based on their policy objectives. Okay, how to combine the different variables even inside the maqasid sharia index. So there is a huge flexibility here. All what I have done is that I just brought the International Development Association formula, which is very flexible and very transparent, and have proven to be successful for raising funds for similar funds. And I tried to combine it with Islamic, to add Islamic perspective to it, which is also very flexible. So refinement, of course, to this is possible in many different ways. Yes. Yes, Salman.
تفضل دكتور سلمان.
Thank you very much. I see it as a good paper in the sense of application of maqasid sharia index. Indices can be applied. There are multiple maqasid sharia index that are available right now. Some positive indices, meaning they are measuring development like HDI, and there are some reverse indices measuring poverty. So if you have larger amount of maqasid sharia based poverty, meaning that development is low. So there are two different methods of measuring. Usually, all these indices, whether HDI or maqasid sharia index, etc., they are just used to rank the country. But this is a good application in the context of IDB, because other agencies are using it to allocate funds, as you mentioned. IDB is not making use of any of these HDIs nor maqasid sharia. So there are two aspects that we can focus, we can develop further on that. One is the fund allocation aspect. The other is that what should be the policy priority within the countries where we are going to allocate. Like they have this country policy priorities as an indicator. So you can create, we can think of creating country policy indicators aligned with maqasid sharia, that whether the country's policies are aligned with it. To the extent those policies are aligned, this Waqf fund or whatever IDB assistance can help in further enhancing. And the other various indices that we have created, they can help us in identifying the areas where much gap is there. So this is, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We can put this paper within the website of maqasid sharia cluster as a policy application of the index.
Thank you very much, Dr. Salman.
Brother Yusuf, تفضل.
It's actually one of my really interesting subjects, and the paper was excellent here, but thank you very much for the efforts. And I just need some clarification. I don't have much questions. You mentioned IOFI involvement for the MCI. I think MSCI.
Was this just a different?
I'm just interested to know how are you involved in this? With this, with the Waqf fund, the index came into there. Can you make it elaborate?
No, I just mentioned it for defining Waqf. So the definition, that's just a refresher at the beginning. So the definition of Waqf is just for according to IOF. That's all. Because it is a trusted يعني. So I'm just not more.
دكتور زاهد تفضل الله يحفظك.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's very good empirical studies, and which is can directly be used by the IDB concerned departments. Just for more benefit for those departments involved in the Waqf, in the IDB, if more detailed studies and main challenges and good recommendation for them, because this study can widely be applied, because as the research shown that we are facing some difficulties in fundraising, and then this is very important to pinpoint the main challenges in more details and in more practical and understandable to those departments, and can then be recommended and send them or take notes and benefit from this research.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Inshallah. We'll pursue that further, inshallah.
طيب مين تحبه؟ تفضل.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I just want to focus on the resource mobilization. I'm sorry I came maybe 10 minutes after the start of the presentation. I saw that you spoke about ISFD.
Yes.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
And that the committed amount is 10 million. Now, 15 years later, we have mobilized, I think, 4 billion something.
Yeah.
As you may be aware, surely you are aware about APIF, which is the Waqf fund also in the bank. The authorized capital is 100 million US dollars, and so far 78 million has been subscribed. And participants are the IDB, Ministry of Waqf in some of our member countries, plus some Islamic banks. Now the challenge of mobilizing also, I think is thinking to increase this capital. It's there also there is a challenge of resource mobilization. So the difficulty for ISFD to mobilize resources, I think it's something on you need to build something on that. See these difficulties, how to address them, and to have a possibility to mobilize the resources needed. I'm thinking, for example, for APIF has operation in direction of Muslim community in non-member countries. Why not open the subscription from is a global Waqf fund even in some Muslim non-member countries,
okay,
to be able to achieve the target. But I think the problem we have to mobilize, so we need to think about it and address be it ISFD, be it APIF, in order to mobilize sufficient resources of these global platforms. If you have some idea on that, I will be interested. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is a humble attempt, to help fund like ISFD, because basically we are talking about the global Waqf fund and how we can rearrange the management in order to beef resource mobilization. So this is a humble attempt to help ISFD.
تفضل يا برادر عبد العزيز.
Okay. I am working now in ICT in the program of economic empowerment, which main principle and strategy and philosophy is to invest our main capital, our main funds directly with poor people, and then the profit of this investment to be redistributed to poor people. For us, when we have analyzed
what is happening in matter of Waqf fund in IDB, and the ICT is allocating the main part of its capital to be invested with rich people, big projects, and then they have the return from 1% to 2%. This 1% to 2%, we try to finance with it program of investment in partnership with poor people. In this program of investment we do with this just small amount, we could have, according to our experience in IDB, more sometimes at least 5 times more profitability with poor people than the what did with rich people. So this made us, after having mobilized more than $500 million in projects of financing poor people, in projects which return is more than 10%, let us think about a study that's trying to say, why not invest our capital of Waqf, this billion capital we have in IDB, directly with poor people in good projects, after preparing those people, preparing this nafs, which is one of the Sharia, prepare them to be good entrepreneurs, so that when we invest with them, our Waqf, IDB, it will return more. And then we came with the idea of development Waqf. Development Waqf, it means that we have that in our IDB, we invest our capital with poor people after preparing with them good projects of investment. We call it economic empowerment of those people, and then we could harvest good. With this approach, when we propose this approach to many donors, we could prepare just last semester, we could prepare the projects of development Waqf of $4 billion, where ICB will bring from its capital, its paid-in capital, some 30%. And then donors, they liked this approach, and then they could mobilize and then decide even this committee of those donors 3.2 billion, because they said if we take the Sharia concept, when we talk about nafs, and then with our economic empowerment, we are really economic empowering this nafs. That's the really of. When we talk about man, we are investing our man. Why in ICT we have, for example, 2.5 billion capital, it is for poverty alleviation, and then I go and then invest in rich people. Open to rich people, another line of finance. Why? Why poor people are looking for financing for their small projects? They couldn't find it. So why not to take the courage and go and invest it? This is, we are applying Sharia compatibility with the state of the art. The business, we should go to it, and then economically speaking, empowering business. This is one. And then allocate all, and then we prove in IDB that we have invested almost $500 million with poor people, that it is almost at least 3 times more profitable than our financing with rich people, where we have 1%, 2%, 3%. So, and I think if we can find in the indicators we have given the indicator of applying and generalizing this financing to human being, then we are empowering us. We are accessing to financing, to technical assistance, to entrepreneurship. This is for me a real analysis of the Sharia compatibility elements we identify. And I think that we have done our study. This study is generated, and then the management of IDB understood that this is the right way, and then they created even a new department of economic reform. These new departments will use mainly Waqf of ICT to be invested directly with people, and the returns will go to poorest people. But the whole amount of what should go to the poor. I think that's our conclusion.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Can I respond to Brother's idea?
Abdulaziz.
Abdulaziz, yeah. Thank you very much. But his Brother Abdulaziz, he mixing between the paper about resource mobilization of Waqf, and he is mixing with financial inclusions and application of Waqf. He still the paper for resource mobilization is very good. Your idea is this is what we are called Islamic financial inclusion. Inclusion the poor through Waqf, resource, or Sadaqah, or Zakah, or even Islamic financing. So that is the good methodology of empowering poor. This is, I think IDB is thinking about this, using this Waqf resources. So we need to mobilize Waqf resources and other resources also for poor. But IDB need to adopt a model for Islamic financial inclusion to empower the poor. And this model also consistent with the SDGs and very important. Very important. The idea is very important. But then we need two models: resource mobilization and other resource mobilization. We need also model of poor financial inclusion. So this is poor. We are working also on this. In AFT, we have researchers working on this, empowering people poor through Islamic financial inclusion using these resources.
The model is mainly resource mobilization. Our model is mainly resource.
No, but we're supposed to combine it. That's why the old model we have to change.
Thank you.
The old model we have to change. We have to have resource mobilization, and we have to this Islamic financial inclusion for the poor. So we include the poor through this the resources that we mobilize.
But in matter of impact of Sharia compatibility, not maqasid Sharia impact, if we see even in the Sunnah, the Prophet Islam said, he is writing to me to send to him a hadith. The Prophet Islam said, if you will be empower for mine on my behalf poor people and invest with them, do business with them. Avoid du'afa. You didn't see the poor. Du'afa is weak people, non-competent people in matter of doing business. Avoid إنما ترزقون. The wealth will be created and go to nafs. Go to the Sha'ara when you do business directly with people.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brother Abdulaziz, Dr. Azai. Thank you very much. But yeah, this is a good point. But you know, the paper, like Dr. Azai said, focuses on mobilizing resources, and actually it focuses on the environment. Actually, you know, these indicators, the RBA indicator, actually focuses on the environment. You know, the macroeconomic governance in each country. By the four clusters that we elaborated on, adding to it maqasid al-sharia. So you cannot just go directly, you know, to financing poor without ensuring that the overall macro environment is actually healthy. So that's what this is, and this framework ensures that the country, you know, that receive have actually healthy macro, institutional, and the environment is good for conducting business. So we cannot go conducting business inside. That will be the utilizing resources inside. I think Salman mentioned some of that later on. but that will be like another part of this study. But the way we mobilize resources here is that we focus on the overall environment and how healthy it is and deserving, to receive money. There is another point about Waqf, and whether you can actually use the capital of Waqf directly for investment. I don't know whether people in the legal department will have a comment on using the Waqf capital directly on investment. Hassan.
تفضل يا برادر عبيد.
Normally, I just have
Yeah.
I just have a comment.
Just a second. Yeah.
So far in APIF, we don't invest the capital is moved directly in the projects. It's not invest and taking back the revenue to reinvest.
There is a Sharia aspect to it, of course, right? We have to preserve the capital. Since this is Waqf.
I think I can share with you what Waqf is doing, based on my experience. Waqf, they invest in projects, sometimes syndicated with other entities in the bank or maybe outside. The revenue is given to whatever the decision made in one area, especially maybe. So that's the Waqf is doing now. But the point, my comment is related to the point of the economic empowerment. The point I think you mentioned in environment to be, stable, macro side of it, some risk, naturally. But now there's a challenge to that because historically this has been status quo for a long time and the impact is very limited. Now this is, the economic empowerment, to my understanding, is saying, okay, who deserves this to be given? Of course, you consider the environment, you look at structures, you look at capacity to a certain extent, but the need should be invested in order to uplift them and the return coming out from there. Because when you invest this in a micro level, people are producing something. In farms, in fishery, in husbandry, anything you want, they will produce. That production will be sold. So they benefit the economy in general, and also the impact is the development side, because I think in Sudan there are some systems that exist, and that's a life example. What I have read. So I think there's a valid point, and I think now part of the decisions they want to go that way, at certain extent. So let's see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. But if the environment is not healthy, how are you going to ensure that your resources will be used in the intended way? It's very important that the environment is good. Very important. Otherwise, corruption and many other things, can just misuse the resources that you raised. Yes.
That's why in our program of economy, we begin by the environment. We should, what's the environment? Environment is that we should identify a feasible and very important, feasible project even with a group of 1,000, 2,000, 100,000 people. And then we should have the big investors or as a strategic partner to do business together with poor people. That's we begin by the environment. The environment needs 6 things. First, the redesign of projects with poor people when we want to finance them. It shouldn't be like my competitive financing people with 80 million projects. But when I am financing for the same product 100,000 people with Islamic modes of financing, we can, in the economy of scale, if we are well organized, we can say, well, it is a project for 100,000 people that is more profitable even for projects within the private sector, the same project. Also, the access to the right financing. The adequate financing.
We are talking about finance, and this is also
not financing. I am talking about investment and economic development. No,
financing for all agree this is a good.
It is not financing the poor in poor projects.
طيب brother, we have one question here, my dear brother. Okay, تفضل.
I think this approach program which is now on
تفضل يا حبيبي.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I wonder if you can kindly go to the ranking of the countries for vulnerability. Yeah, at the beginning.
Which one?
Yeah, at the beginning.
This one?
Yes, exactly. So here I have maybe a question regarding maybe the methodology, because I don't know if you recall the latest vulnerability report of Ariel.
Of who?
Ariel. They have produced this report where they actually. Why do I know this? Because I'm from Tunisia, and I noticed in that report, Tunisia really is in the category of the highest, in the top category of the most risky country really to deal with in terms of development assistance of the IDB. And here I noticed that Tunisia is actually the other way around at the beginning. So is there any contradiction in the methodology between these two reports?
This is a ranking based on an index created to measure adherence to maqasid al-sharia. That's the preservation of nafs, aql, money and intellect. You know maqasid al-sharia?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is based on an index which is created to measure adherence to maqasid al-sharia.
Yes. So there is no direct link between the vulnerability, like macroeconomic variables, and the maqasid al-sharia.
They are not the same.
What I understood is that the highest ranking from the discussion that just received now is that the highest ranking countries are those that have the most stable environment. And this links directly to the macroeconomic variables in terms of economic and political stability. So is there any link or correlation between the maqasid al-sharia and the macroeconomic variables?
The other index that we're talking about is like International Development Association indices, which is based on this criteria. We are combining these criteria here. Okay. But this is anyway, the ranking of countries or difference of ranking. This is not the main point of this exercise. The main point of this exercise is that there is a solid, methodology that's used and attract, fundraising by MDBs. We are trying, and that's very flexible. We are adding to it Islamic dimension, okay, and combining it, and we are proposing for using it for fundraising for a global Islamic. This is like the main point. So that will have no impact because there is no convergence on how even to measure maqasid al-sharia. So the focus of the point, that's the focus of the point of the paper.
Okay, thank you. But it's just because the link, if we, let's say we put an extra variable, which is maqasid al-sharia, and here we see some of the countries that were in the bottom of, let's say, considered as the top countries to deal with in terms of resource mobilization. If we take the other formula, the first part, that's the target countries. And if we look at the countries, the output of linking it to maqasid al-sharia, there's a reverse effect. So this is here my question really. How can we link the previous rankings that we have seen linked to the development index, etc., to the maqasid al-sharia? Because a country can have an excellent structure where it gives the required to achieve the maqasid al-sharia. On the other hand, the country can be very politically unstable from the economic and political interactions with even the other countries and NDP. So really, it's just here, how can we link both?
Thank you very much, brother. But this is not the subject of this paper. That's a different paper.
This point is good point.
But this is not the subject
it is
of
not
this
the
paper.
focus, but it can be learned for other developing. See why your country is using the model without maqasid al-sharia is up, and why we're introducing this in the bottom or in the middle. It's still in the division is okay, but you can pair that, learn another lessons, and let Tunisian centers, research center can study this very well.
Do you still want to? Okay, brother. تفضل.
I thought you had a question.
Okay. After
I think it is passed on already.
after that, Dr. Salman.
Yes, I remember the question now. You're speaking about a global Waqf fund.
Yes.
I just want a clarification on whether you're saying that, or you're suggesting that we should establish a new global Waqf fund based on this method of resource mobilization, or you're saying that ISFD was meant to be a global Waqf fund and we should use this to now reach the 10 billion of ISFD. This is, I got a bit confused, maybe because I can't read it, but I just want to
We're just putting this forward. So, I mean, the user, I mean, however you want to use it, I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm not going to say this, this is specifically for ISFD, but like I say, if you follow from the beginning, I mean, there was a call for establishing a global Waqf fund from IDB president himself in 2010, and this is like one of the motivation for creating this research. So if you want to use it for ISFD, there is nothing that prevents from using for ISFD. If you want to create a new global fund, it's just a methodology we are proposing for raising funds.
So my follow-on from that is, how do you see bringing this to management's attention in a way that will get them to actually use it, either to create a new fund or to use it for ISMB?
Yeah, we have to prepare and give it to the management. We just have to put it as a document for the management.
يا دكتور سلمان تفضل.
I just want to summarize what is the issue. In order to mobilize any fund for any development or charitable purpose, look at ourselves, that where do we give? If we are not giving directly to the poor, we are giving someone else on our behalf to make the charity. We give to the person who is more credible, whom we trust more. And we know that he not only trusts, but also that he has the capacity to make the right judgment, where to give the charity. So same thing goes over here in large fund mobilization when you are doing this kind of thing. Any Waqf fund, whether IFSD or any different fund or whatever, donors will be judging it based on, first of all, what proposals you are proposing, that they perform their expectations. The transparency, that how the funds are actually used, and the impact, which will come later. So in the beginning, the expectations and the transparency will be important. So how you are going to allocate the funds? This is one rule which provides the transparency, that we are going to provide things in which the funds are according to which country is moving in the Mobilization direction. So this is the only takeaway for me from this. That's why I'm saying there is the application of that index. How much that index is useful for that purpose? Every index is useful for a different kind. So we are talking about the vulnerability thing. Mobilization is not measuring vulnerability; it is measuring achievement. You can measure poverty in multiple dimensions, which is a kind of vulnerability. Again, we can do this. So if IDP is defining certain rules of investment, not ad hoc investment, that we are collecting the funds and we will provide funding to the poor country or for the poor people. Saying this is not enough. If you have defined rules that you are going to follow, that establishes the credibility. And this proposal is providing a method to create that rule. So from that perspective, all funds of IDB can benefit, whether FF or also IFSD or any fund.
Finally, I would like to thank you all for your attendance and support. I hope, inshallah, we'll see you again in our next seminars. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.